okay if I just stand up and walk around?
Yes, it's okay. It's quite wide.
Il y a quelqu'un qui a besoin de traduction de l'anglais vers le français?
Photo du bon angle.
Pagano.
If I need it, but I don't think I don't. The name's on the stretch.
Hello everyone. Bonjour. On va pouvoir commencer. Donc voilà. Bienvenue à tous.
Hello everybody. I have a huge apology to make. I'm English, so I don't speak French. I'm very sorry. I will try and speak slowly, although when I get excited I speed up, so you're just going to have to come with me. Can you hear me at the back? I'm not quiet, am I? No, my name is Anne Waters. It's a pleasure to be here with you today in Paris to tell you a little story of what we've been doing in the north of England with the shared values that everybody has in this room. It's a little story that began 10 years ago because I wanted to create a new, kinder normal. It started in my hometown because we need to begin with action in a place that we call home. My hometown, 15,000 people, market town, issues around unemployment, education, health, lack of pride in our town. It used to look like this. It rains a lot. It's not great for growing, but it is my hometown, and now it looks like that. Not sunshine all the time, but it has fruit and vegetables and herbs growing all over the middle of the town in places that we have taken over to create propaganda gardens. They are very public places. They are on the canal, outside the police station, at the college, on the main roads. They are edible landscapes that start people thinking about food. They're edible landscapes to help people understand that instead of worrying about tomorrow, we must simply act and do something different to today. They are edible landscapes that help strangers talk to each other using the language of food. Let me explain why we do that. So 10 years ago, I was the leader of local government. I was in charge of a hospital. I was loads of things, spending a lot of money in a way that was sustainable. And 10 years ago, I remember thinking, we had the Real Earth Summit, we had Kyoto, we had Copenhagen, we had 1,001 opportunities for the leaders of this planet to do things differently. And they didn't. 10 years ago, they wrote reports. They had committee meetings. They wrote more reports. They had strategy documents. They did 1,001 things that involved not doing anything differently. Because ultimately, the simple truth is, we do not need a new formula to live differently. We just need the will and the opportunity to do it. So 10 years ago, I was fed up of the leaders of my country and most countries who were not helping the poorest on this planet live better lives. So I thought, am I going to go home and just drink a lot more alcohol and forget about it? Or shall I start to do something with what I can do, my small gifts, and see if I can start a conversation that people want to engage with about a kinder future, without any money, without any bureaucracy, without any permission from anybody, just doing it. So I was in London and I was travelling on a train back to my town in the north. And in 2.5 hours, I invented a very simple model that we call Incredible Edible. Because this isn't good enough for our children, and if the people we elect won't do it differently, we will show them the way. So most people I met 10 years ago, all my life, care about their children. They want a better tomorrow. But they don't know how to tackle this issue of sustainability. Most people in my town do not talk about sustainability. They do not talk about peak oil. They do not talk about that. They talk about their health. They talk about their jobs. They talk about being happy and well. That is what they want. Okay, so how do we engage many, many more people than those of us in this room in understanding they are part of a solution to tomorrow? They are not the problem. How do we do that? And the simplest way I know to do that is to talk food. And that is why we invented Incredible Edible. It's not exclusive. You do not need a degree. You do not even need to be able to grow food. You just need to want to do something about food. So that we can recreate community that lives well from the grassroots, without permission, without big checks, without degrees. How are we going to do that? Okay? How are we going to demonstrate that we are ahead of the big bankers and the people who make the decisions of our lives in a way that does not build a kinder tomorrow for our children? How are we going to do it? Well, we find our own leadership. We believe in ourselves and we just go and do it. So here is the simple model of Incredible Edible. It is not a food growing project. It is a people growing project that uses food. So I invented this model that was a bit like a circus, because it has to be fun. there's no point in being miserable for the rest of our lives. 3 different plates, wherever we call home. Let's try to spin them. And let's see what happens. The first plate. Let's just go out there, anywhere, Paris, London, my town, a village, and let's just grow food. Let's just find out what we got in our own gardens and plant it to share. Food to share. Food for free. We are not trying to plant food in the middle of Paris to feed all Parisians. We are trying to start to get more people to think about food, where it comes from, how they use it, where they buy it, and in doing that, they start to think about a new normal. The second plate, you've got a lot of spaces around town where people can see orchards, vegetables, herbs, edible flowers. But they don't know how to do it. Maybe everybody in France does. But in England, they do not. They have forgotten how to cook. Forgotten what grows in what season. They have forgotten about biodiversity. They have forgotten so many of the skills our grandparents had to live well and prosper when times are hard. So let's share them. We need to find the people who visit us from other shores who've got amazing food skills, but we're not talking to them. We need to find those older people who may be lonely, who know so much about food. They have forgotten, so much. We have forgotten so much, and they can teach us. So let's find those lost arts and let's share them so that more of us can do more stuff around food. And quite frankly, that might be very simple. We have edible landscapes everywhere. We're starting to know what to pick in season. Wouldn't it be great if more of our young people could get great jobs with food in the place they call home? More of our young people being the food entrepreneurs of tomorrow. More of our markets popping up all the time. Not just on Saturdays or whenever, so that there were many more people creating local food and selling it locally, thereby creating a local economy. So we do not import from Kenya. We do not only buy in supermarkets, but we have many opportunities for our next generation to create jobs that make them happy. And there are few things more enjoyable than working with food. So, that's Incredible Edible. 3 plates, not 1. Edible landscapes, sharing skills, supporting local markets, supporting the next generation of food entrepreneurs. Okay? So 10 years, I just made that up. I had no idea if that was going to work. But it seemed to me to look like something that was normal for people. Because I've worked in the environmental movement for a long, long, long time. And quite frankly, environmentalists talk to themselves too much. We do not get out on the street enough. We do not work with people who do not understand what we are talking about, all of whom could live life differently, and each of whom want a better tomorrow for their children. So, let's look at what happened. Year 1. We just started. We planted food along the side of the road with big signs that said, please share. And then if you used the last thing, plant something else. We planted in front of the college. We planted outside, not inside, the school gate. We planted at our health centre. We planted at small doctors' surgeries. We planted at the railway station. We planted at the police station. We planted everywhere. Sometimes we asked, like the police, and sometimes we didn't, like the side of the road. But always we planted with our gifts and our time, and with the signs that say to people, this is food to share. Think differently. See space differently. You know, it's quite interesting in the UK. It may not be the same in France. Forgive me if none of this resonates with you. But in the UK, we build hospitals and doctor surgeries, and we surround them with inedible, prickly plants. We do not surround our hospitals with orchards. We do not surround our hospitals with herb gardens. We do not surround our hospitals with vegetable patches. But what we do is we then advertise, spending millions of pounds, that we should eat better in order to be healthy. Well, the simple answer to that is don't plant things you can't eat outside a hospital. Plant things you can eat and sign them so that people taste the strawberries, they taste the raspberries, they smell the lavender, they pick the apples. This is common sense. This is how small actions start to challenge investment programs. The police thought we were mad. We said to the police, please could we plant in front of your police station? And because we were polite and nice and old, they said yes, okay. And then they thought, bonkers, absolutely mad. So we did it. We didn't ask them for any money. We didn't even ask them for water. We just did it. And then in years 2, 3 and 4, because this is not a fast programme, we are changing habits of decades. Suddenly the police said to us, do you know, since you've planted edible spaces all over our town, there's no environmental damage there anymore. Because people do not damage food. And since you started to do that, people talk to us a lot more. And when they talk to us, they smile. Because they think it's funny that there is sweet corn growing in front of the police station. Isn't it interesting? It diffuses tension. It starts communities talking. And all you've done is plant food. The second thing we did with the learning was simple. Kids in school do great things. But so often when they leave that school, they go home to fast food, or no food, or poor food. Not the rich, not the well-educated, but huge numbers in our communities have got problems around poverty and around the ability to nourish their children. So that's why we plant outside the schoolyard. So that mums and dads, when they collect their children, can see and share vegetables that are grown there. And that's why we use young children. We haven't introduced slavery. But young children want to come and grow. And this young person is planting in front of the police station. And is very proud that he has created something that nationally now, in the UK, is becoming more normal. Because more people are planting in police stations than ever before. How fun. And the bottom one is a picture of the staff and the visitors and the patients of the local hospital who picked the food from around the hospital and cooked it together. Very simple. And the third plate is that if you start to think differently about local food, those that have got €1 in their pocket are more likely to want to spend it in support of local farmers, local producers, local stalls. Not everybody, still most people spend in supermarkets, but increasingly, more people. I am an economist. Okay? It's really simple. You get the economy you spend your money on. It's not rocket science. So those are the first year of Incredible Edible. You can't read that, but what it says is, strangely enough, we told our story. It's just a story. I went all over the country telling the story, showing people that they can do things just with their own gifts and resources. And suddenly, other places in London and in Scotland and in Wales and throughout the country started to grow propaganda gardens, started to share lost arts, started to support local markets. Now we have about 120 groups in the UK, and we have groups all over the world. There are many, many groups in France. John Baptiste can tell you more about them. Growing in Paris, growing in small villages, sharing those skills, because this is the power of small action. This is saying, don't wait for permission to build a kinder tomorrow. And it's interesting, because so many leaders now, young leaders, are starting to say, what can we do? So when the earthquake in Christchurch, New Zealand, happened, the local authority, the government, came to us and said, we are bankrupt as a city. We have lost all hope as a city. 80% of Christchurch fell with the earthquake. So what did they do? They created propaganda gardens in all the rubble and the disused lot. And I went there with them to celebrate that, because the simple act of growing food brings back hope. And funnily enough, in New Zealand, they also grow food in police stations and around hospitals, which is great. So it seems like just with a few people, no office, no bureaucracy, just a story, we are growing a movement of ordinary people who are fed up of being stopped from finding that new normal. And here's the thing. When people say to you, which they do, how do you scale that up? You tell them you don't. It's a con. You can scale up production of cars, but human beings can spread. We do not scale. Because the power of the small action is what makes it possible for every single one of us to be the solution. So here is me at the railway station. We are working with railway companies now to plant herbs along platforms, to take corners of car parks and grow vegetables in them, so that people can get off a train and pick food with their children. The local fire service themselves, not us, are working with their communities in fire stations to plant food. Private sector companies are now trying to rethink what we call corporate social responsibility. You know, when everybody puts a t-shirt on and goes and paints the wall, whether you want it painted or you don't. Now, they are offering to their communities the help they can give them to grow food. And in the middle of our cities, and it's happened in Paris, we are now taking over unloved, scary places, and with the community, growing food. So what next? We know we can do it. We know that after 10 years, ordinary people have nothing in the world to fear. We have never been arrested. We have never been shot. We have never been sued. People cannot stop you giving your gift for tomorrow. So there's nothing to be frightened about. But what we can do is challenge the people, the mayors, the chief execs, the senior officials. We can challenge them now because we know we can do it differently. And here's the beauty of it. They are lost. They do not know how to provide a good tomorrow anymore. They know how to do it yesterday, but for the tomorrow that we want, So they listen. For the first time, they are listening. This is an example in England, so forgive me, but I think it will resonate for some of your thinking here in France. So in the north of England, there is more poverty than in the south of England. Okay, I live in the north. So the government in the south of England decided that we needed more stuff like them in order to be rich. So they invented an idea called the Northern Powerhouse. It's so full of testosterone. So this Northern Powerhouse is going to help people who haven't got good jobs or happiness when they wake up in the morning or good health or whatever. And it's going to do it by adopting the model of a system used in the south of England and the rest of the world that's broken, that doesn't use resources sustainably, that has increasing illness on its doorstep, that has increasing disparities between rich and poor, let alone issues around climate, water, whatever. So we thought, forget that, we do not want a Northern Powerhouse, we want a Northern Greenhouse. We want the whole of the north of England, the major cities, from Newcastle, Leeds, Manchester, Liverpool, the millions and millions of people. We want to say, we do not want what you've got, London. We want something different. So we're going to create a greenhouse. We are going to, through our own actions, redefine prosperity. And we're going to do it from the roots. So you do not have to worry that I am going to ask you for a huge amount of money, because I may ask you for money, but I'm not going to ask for new money. I'm going to ask you to spend your money different. I want, in my towns and in the north of England, to demonstrate for the rest of the world that we can grow health, we can grow wealth, and we can grow happiness by collectively working together, in the first instance around food, but after that, the sky is the limit. Food is the Trojan horse for how we engage the thousands, and we must engage the thousands. So how do we do it? Really simple. I've spent millions of pounds in my life, millions, right? It's not difficult if you've got the will to spend it differently. So we need local government, we need your mayors, we need central government to start to think about what they're spending their money on. We want them to rethink the public realm and the private realm so that we demonstrate to the next generation how we can grow food well, so that we design our cities to grow on rooftops and up walls, so that we rethink everybody's engagement in food. We want to repurpose healthcare. Stop keep popping pills. Stop keep cutting people open. Of course, that must happen sometimes. But so many people are ill with diabetes, coronary heart disease, obesity, simply because of the lifestyle they lead. Is it not possible that we could rethink that so less people were ill and more people were active? By growing food, by cooking good food, by sharing good food, by having a happier life using local food. And in England, it may be different again in France, but in England, nobody is teaching our young people to be the urban farmers of tomorrow. Nobody. In our schools, we teach science, technology, engineering, art, and maths. All are needed to feed the world tomorrow. But are we teaching people how to do that? No. Not in the UK, we're not. So we want to challenge the curriculum. And lastly, we want to make sure that we can reboot what we call sticky money economy. That is where the profit stays in the village, in the town, in the city. So that we stop flying things all over the planet. We stop letting profits go out to a few multinationals. We start making sure that it is profitable to engage in enterprise locally. All this is possible for the people that you elect and I elect to do. They only need the will to do it. And they'll only do it if the people demand it. And just to show you, this will mean nothing in Paris. But the reason I'm showing you this is, after 10 years, this is not one old woman telling the same story. These Wigan Council, Barnsley Council, Liverpool Council, major councils of 500,000, 750,000 people are saying to me, come and work with us. We like your model. We think it helps our people live better. We want to be incredible, edible. The NHS, National Health Service, is now talking to us about making it normal to plant food around hospitals and doctors' surgeries. Major private sector companies now realise they must invest in more local supply chains because they cannot make money when they have to fly things that can no longer be flown. Now, you may or you may not want to work with the private sector, but I think my enemy's enemy is my friend. And if they will help us achieve a better, kinder, more local tomorrow, then we start to achieve all the things that we care about in this room. And the simple truth is, this is a movement for everybody. If you eat, you're in. That's our calling card. Everybody. Not just the people who read the intellectual press or people who've done the degrees. Everybody has a stake in building something better. And ultimately, this is the message. It's just the message. It's the most important thing I've ever done in my 68 years. Because I've worked with people who marginalise folks like us. I have worked with people who tell me with a pat on the back, it's far too difficult, this climate change thing, it's sustainable, it's too difficult. Go back. They tell me that our solutions aren't sophisticated enough. They appear to be doing things when ultimately they are not grabbing that really important agenda, which is start using less, start thinking about communities, and start to empower the people to live better and kinder lives. You need to give up the power if you're going to build a better tomorrow. We know we can do this. It would be great if there were thousands and thousands of people in this room from all the estates around Paris thinking it's time for change. But increasingly, we are starting conversations with them, are we not? And increasingly, Incroyables Edible here in Paris and throughout France is engaging people who don't know where to start, and all they've got to do is plant some veg. because through the power of small actions, we can demonstrate to people who have lost their way it is entirely possible for us to live within our means, be happy, and build a kinder tomorrow for our kids. Thank you. Do you want to do something, or have you all had enough? Hiya. Yeah, there's a lady at the back.
I was wondering exactly how all of these small actions, how would you apply this model? Because obviously, with all the constraints and running everything incredible level has done to apply the
Is I know what I know. Okay? I know what works in the circumstances. It would be to say, I have got a magic formula that is going to work everywhere. It is predominantly effective in industrialised nations that have left many of their citizens behind and that have scrapped the planet in their endeavours to live well. Okay? And that's a lot of resource and that's a lot of planet. Here's what I think. Do I have a magic bullet for some of the poorest nations in the world? No. But actually, let's think about it. When we talk about sustainability, the people who are impacted upon the most are the poorest on the planet. Okay? So actually, before we start doing to them, it would be a really good idea if we started sorting ourselves out. Because our impact has created the issues around water wars, has created the issues around poverty and food. So one thing you can do is do what you can get your hands on. Because perfection is the enemy of progress. The second thing you do is know that if we bring up generations of young people who start to see that bigger picture, it doesn't matter that I haven't got the solution. These young people have got ideas I could never imagine. So who knows what that might do to start to invest in generations of people who see themselves as citizens of the planet with responsibilities for the planet. Thirdly, there are most amazing things going on in something quite rich. Who knows? I haven't got that. But what I've got is a message that says, do solve the problems one at a time. Do it by understanding, and that's what the poor is doing with the planet.
Unless you've been traveling in how the small city of Colorado was translating in bigger cities.
Yeah, absolutely. Mons, how does something that works in a town of 15,000 people, how does that work in London? Okay? For argument's sake. But here's the thing. People don't live in London. They live in Lewisham, or Brixton, or Crouch End. They live in communities. They live in neighbourhoods. And that's the scale of the operation. Parisians are Parisians, but, you know, you live in your neighbourhood, in your streets, with your shops and your markets and your businesses. So what we do is not try to have, initially, a model for 9 million people. What we do is say, when you work with your neighbours and your schools and your businesses and your streets and your police, you work in a locality that's a village or a town in a city. And that's the thing that works. But what we need to do is connect and talk to each other more. Because ultimately, we have to challenge the mayor. We have to challenge Macron. We have to challenge these people, because what have we got to lose? Nothing. To say, actually, I am not asking you for... Here's the thing. And I used to be in charge of some of these organisations. Most people that work in those organisations have got families and children, and they're normal. They're just in a system that stops them doing things differently. So the really smart thing to do when you're speaking to these people in your neighbourhood is to ask them something they can say yes to. Don't ask them something they're going to say no to. When they say yes once, you will build up a relationship, things will happen. Because it's not good, bad. It's old system, need for new system. That's the issue. So this is why I say, do not think about scale. Because the economists who want to stop you would ask that question. And you go, oh, I don't know. Spread. One neighbourhood to another neighbourhood to another neighbourhood. And then, some simple messages. We want all our hospitals to be surrounded by orchards, say. Why does that matter? Because a child walking to and from school, to and from hospital, to and from the police station, God forbid, over 10 years, is a child that thinks about food in a different way to one that only goes to a supermarket. It's just about behaviour change. So the way to do it is to, I think, find some simple messages that don't require more money, because they'll say no, but do require them to say, okay, you can do that, and then celebrate it. I know it doesn't sound sexy, but it works. And ultimately, we have got to stop speaking to ourselves. And we have to start finding a way of getting people who don't think they care about the environment and low carbon and all sorts of things that they don't understand into rooms, rolling up their sleeves and living differently.
Yeah, I think there's something I didn't understand at the very beginning. If I want to launch a vegetable in my village, I have to buy seeds, I have to buy pits, and to spend money, right?
Well, you could. I don't know what your family's like, but you could actually say to your auntie, have you got any in your garden, auntie? Could I have half of them and put them? You don't necessarily have to buy things to start. You use your brain and you think, who might have some seeds? Because I'm the world's worst grower. I've learned a lot in 10 years. I can cook, but I'm not great at growing. But what you'll find is when people grow, they have seed packets, right? And most people have got half the seed packets in their bottom drawers, am I right? Go and find the bottom drawers. Get the seeds, plant them. You just have to think smart. And ultimately, if you've had to buy a packet of seeds to start a conversation, it's £2. Or €1. So all I'm saying is there's lots of opportunities to start and tell stories without having to spend a lot of money. Just find some growers and ask them for some seeds. They'll have some. Promise. But then you've got to create notices. There is no point in doing it without a great poster that says, food share. Shall we build something kinder? Hiya.
Hi. One question related to, let's say, the role of supermarkets in, you were mentioning that.
Yeah.
This, okay, are they part of the community? Are they one? Yeah, because it's like,
say first, the world is too full of negative thoughts. So I don't do anti-supermarket. I do positive alternatives. Okay? Supermarkets employ people. Supermarkets feed people. Right? They're part of a system that's not working, but we are ordinary people. So let's not start by trying to take over the capitalist world. Let's demonstrate an alternative kind of proposition. That's the first thing. We do not sell our things through the supermarket. Okay? We do not sell. So when we have propaganda gardens, people help themselves and pick the food. On the whole, people do not take all the food. You've just got to trust people, you know? And on a few occasions when people do take all the food, it is mainly because they need it for their family. So we plant some more. Okay? But what I'm saying is, that then starts a conversation. That then starts to bring up young people with a sense of sharing, community, seeing how things grow, right? This like takes years. And over time, more people might have more opportunities to create their own locally profitable businesses around food. Okay? And that whole thing has happened without having to worry about Tesco's and Walmart and, okay? Because what stops us doing things is it's so big. How do we tackle the multinationals? It's a huge problem. So we start with what we can get our hands on. You know, the more that I know, the more I know I don't know. But what I do know is that you cannot stop a force of people doing things differently. You can't stop it. Because it's the basis of life to share food. We do so many things wrong, like food banks. Okay? Food banks are a necessary evil, but they are an evil. They redistribute food from major supermarkets in a way that doesn't in any way impact on their profits. And ultimately, it reinforces a dependency culture. What we're trying to do in our little ways is say, let's share our food. Let's make sure we're not hungry. Let's talk to older people who can preserve and pick seeds or whatever. Let's start to redefine how we work as a community through food. And then let's just have enough faith that says collectively we can challenge some of those big capitalist models. And I want to give you one example, and then I think enough of me. But anyway, in my part of the country, in the north of England, because sometimes this can seem all too, oh, well, she had an idea, but that will never work in Paris or whatever. In the north of England, about 140 years ago, yeah, a long time ago, a bunch of people who hadn't got much money sat round a table in a town called Rochdale and came to a simple conclusion. You buy a sack of grain, I'll buy a sack of something else, and then we'll share it so that we can all afford better. And that one single act created what became the International Cooperative Movement. The International Cooperative Movement started in a small industrial town in the north of England with ordinary people like us, responding positively to things they didn't like. Now, if a bunch of working class people 140 years ago can do that, and you'll have loads of examples in France of a similar nature, then all we need is the will to do it ourselves, and we can shift some of those barriers, and we can trust more people to live more sustainably. If we have a framework around us that makes it easy. That's all we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pamela, for coming today. We are really grateful, and I think